You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, and you're not. I'm going to start with the Stanley Cup Finals. Like I said, there's more juice there. I was a lot more into that game than I was Clippers-Suns. And look, for the vast majority of that game, it was exciting. Good defensive hockey. In the Stanley Cup Finals, you don't want to make any mistakes. And you really don't want to make any mistakes if you're the Habs against this Lightning team that beat the Islanders in a Game 7 because they only made one mistake. I mean, I saw some people calling it tentative. Both teams were tentative. This was a feeling out process. It may have been that partially because obviously this is the first time that the Lightning and Habs have seen each other this year. But I just think both teams were focusing on playing sound defensive hockey. Having said that, though, you've got to do that for 3 periods, and the Canadiens didn't. You give up 3 unanswered goals in the 3rd period. You only get 5 shots on net in the 3rd period. You're not going to win many hockey games. The Lightning's defensive game plan was excellent. The Habs' game plan wasn't bad either. But the Lightning's was better. Force shots to come from the point. Shoot from outside. Clean up any loose pucks. Great game plan by the Lightning, and it was executed perfectly. I mean, the one goal that the Habs scored wouldn't be out of place if you were playing pinball. Hit off 2 different Lightning and just got past Vasilevsky. I don't blame Vasilevsky for that at all. If that's the one goal that the Lightning give up, they're doing something right. The Lightning did everything right. That puck just had eyes. Puck luck is real. As for the Canadiens' game plan, their issue was recovering from turnovers. The Lightning are excellent at forcing mistakes. They will make you make mistakes, and it is up to you to recover from them. The Habs did not do that yesterday. The first goal was a turnover in the offensive zone. The Lightning pushed the issue. Excellent passing play by Eric Chernak and Andre Palat. Chernak ended up scoring. 1-0 Lightning. The same thing happened on the second goal. An offensive zone turnover. The Lightning pushed the issue. Once you make a mistake, they are just in attack mode. Attack, attack, attack. They're like sharks that smell blood in the water. Now, what impressed me the most about the second goal was Yanni Gourde getting in position for that screen. Realize he's all the way in the Lightning zone when this play first starts. He never touches the puck. He doesn't care. He has the presence of mind to go to the front of the net and screen Carey Price. Great job by Gord. Great job by the Lightning of always being in attack mode. That's what you need to do. Instead of waiting for the perfect shot or dumping and chasing, make a couple quick passes, stay aggressive, and eventually you'll get the goalie to blink. Then you had the crazy Sherratt goal. We're going to start calling him Pinball Wizard. But who will like that? It's 2-1 Lightning, end of 2. I'll say this, going into the third period, you had a sense that if the Lightning were up 2-0, this game would be over. They needed that one goal to keep them in it. They couldn't afford to fall behind 3-1. Well, that's what happened. And the GOAT was Ben Sherratt. Maybe he's not Pinball Wizard. Nikita Kucherov just throws the puck on net. Sherratt tries to bat it away from Carey Price with his hand. He ends up whiffing on it. And Andre Palat sort of kind of batted it in. And the reason I'm saying sort of kind of is because that goal was credited to Kucherov. I don't know how that goal was credited to Kucherov. I mean, I'm watching the replay now. It looks like Palat deflected the puck in with his stick. Great hand-eye coordination by Palat. It seems like it should be Palat's goal. But if nothing else, he influenced Sherratt. If Palat isn't there, Sherratt's able to get the puck out of harm's way. With Palat there, 3-1 Lightning. Then Kucherov, right off the draw, like 10 minutes later, makes it 4-1 Lightning, and he could have turned the game off right there. That's what I did. Put on the NBA for the rest of the night. It's always tough to give up a goal right off the face-off. Very deflating to goalies. I know that for a fact. And it's even more deflating when that made it so you were down 3 goals with under 9 minutes left. You weren't coming back from that. Steven Stamkos scored on the power play. Whoop-de-doo. Great game by the Lightning. They seized on the Canadiens' mistakes. The Canadiens did not play a perfect game. When they got set in their defense, they dumped the puck in, they got the changes they wanted, and they got set in their defense, they were golden. But offensive zone turnovers killed them. Not being able to get the puck out of harm's way when they needed to killed them. You can't play like that against this Lightning team and expect to win. It's just not going to work. Now, I'll say this. Carey Price isn't without blame here. I mean, if you give up 5 goals on 27 shots, you're doing something wrong. I'm sorry. I don't care what the circumstances are. This Stanley Cup Finals was billed as a matchup between the 2 best goalies in the NHL, Carey Price and Andrei Vasilevskiy. Vasilevskiy showed up, Price didn't. At the end of the day, you can't give up 5 goals in a Stanley Cup Finals game. That's the first game that Price has given up 5 goals since Game 2 of the Leafs series. I mean, a couple of the goals were his fault. The Chernak goal, he'd have liked to have had back. The Yanni Gourde goal was just a great play by him, getting to the front of the net, screening Price and deflecting it past him. The Kucherov/Palat goal was just a great play by Andre Palat. The second Kucherov goal, that was a bad goal to give up. I mean, right off the face-off, you've got to stop that puck. And the Stamkos goal on the power play, I'm not going to get on Price too much for that. So that's 2 goals that you can put on Price. That was enough for the Lightning to win. If that was all they did offensively, they win. I understand that if you only give up 2 goals, you're doing something right in net, and Price did make some nice saves, but when the goalie on the other end is Andrei Vasilevsky, you've got to step up your game a little bit. The Lightning in the third period were by far and away the better team. You don't want to fall behind 2-0 to these guys. You've got to fix this stuff if you're going to make a series out of this. Alright, now I'll give you some NBA Valk talk. And I'll start with Clippers Suns. Give Paul George a ton of credit. Okay, I've been hard on George in this series. There's no question. Some people would say too hard. I disagree with that. But, look, I've been rough on him. He really needed to step up yesterday. An elimination game, you need your best player to dominate. And be the best player on the floor by far and away. George did that. He did not play well in the first half, just to be clear. He only had 11 points. But in the second half, he had 30. You know how many points the Clippers scored in the second half as a team? 57. So Paul George was responsible for more than half of the Clippers' points in the second half yesterday. Every time the Suns made it close, and you thought maybe, just maybe, they're going to win it here, the Clippers pulled away. I mean, that's the Paul George I want to see. We know that George has talent. He's a really, really, really good player. In fact, if you want to call him great, I wouldn't hate you for it. With the Clippers season on the line, George dropped 41 points. That's the most points he's ever had in a playoff game. He shot 75% from the field. He couldn't miss. I'm not saying that he needs to do that every time he steps onto the court. But this is really the first game in this series that George has taken his game to another level. That's what I want from him. That's what I've been screaming for. That's why I've been so hard on him. We know the talent that Paul George is. There's a reason that the guy was given a mammoth extension last year. There's a reason that the Clippers moved heaven and earth to pair him with Kawhi Leonard. He has talent. This is the first game that he's stepped up in this series and has taken his game to another level. You know what? I commend him for it. Can he do it 2 more times? Probably not, but he forced a game 6. And it's going to be at the Staples Center. If you can get past that game, anything can happen in a game 7. I will say this, though. George wasn't the only member of the Clippers who stepped up. And I don't mean that as an insult to George. It's just fact. Marcus Morris absolutely dominated in the first half. He had 20 points. Reggie Jackson had a really good game. He had 23 points. DeMarcus Cousins had 15 points. I mean, how's this for a stat? The Suns had 32 points in the paint. You know how many the Clippers had? 58. DeAndre Ayton had by far and away his worst game of this series. He's got to step it up tomorrow. It's just that simple. I mean, Devin Booker was really good. Chris Paul was solid. You'd have liked him to have been better from beyond the arc. He shot 0 for 6 from 3, but he did have 22 points. So I'll give him a little bit of a pass. He did take a nasty fall, though. Patrick Beverley tried to get around a screen. Ended up making contact with Chris Paul. It was called a flagrant. And Paul landed on his back hard. And then he had Patrick Beverley mocking him. What a class act Patrick Beverley is, let me tell you. He is nothing but an incredibly classy human being. And in case you couldn't tell, that was sarcasm. I mean, Beverly's that guy who you hate if he's not on your team, but if he's on your team, you love him. I mean, to be fair, that's what he's asked to do. He's asked to be a giant pain in the ass. So he's executing his role. I mean, give him credit in a weird way. But to mock someone after they hit the deck hard on a foul, on a flagrant one, that shouldn't have been a flagrant one, but still a foul that you caused, that's just classless. So look, this was a bad game for the Suns, there's no question about that, but I'll say this. The fact that the Clippers needed Paul George to have one of his best playoff games ever, along with Marcus Morris going off in the first half, along with Reggie Jackson having a really good game and DeMarcus Cousins having a really good game, actually bodes a little well for the Suns, because that's not going to happen again. You're not going to have all four of those guys functioning at 100% again. They'll get theirs, but I don't think they're all going to go off at the same time again. Alright, now it's time to preview Bucks-Hawks. And what I want for the Bucks here is to get their big three cooking all at once. Go back and look at all three games in this series. Game 1, Chris Middleton no-showed. Game 2, Middleton wasn't much better. Game 3, he took over, but Jrue Holiday no-showed. Granted, they haven't needed all three of their big guns to cook at once, but you'd like to see it if you're a Bucks fan. You'd want to see all three of these guys go for more than 20. As for the Hawks, it's kind of similar. Trae Young needs help. He can't have Danilo Gallinari be his second best player. Where's Clint Capella? Where's Kevin Huerter? Where's John Collins? Where's Bogdan Bogdanovic? Where's Lou Williams? Why didn't Cam Reddish play? The seminal reason that the Hawks have gotten this far is because of Trae Young. There's no question. But he's gotten some help. He didn't get that on Sunday. He needs to get it here if the Hawks want to make this a best 2 out of 3. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Bucks are going to take a 3-1 series lead tonight. It seems like we're looking at a Bucks-Suns NBA Finals. The NBA will love that, right? Like I said, the NHL has more juice right now. I mean, pity me. When hockey's over, I'm going to have to go to watching the Yankees if I don't want to watch the NBA playoffs anymore. The way the Yankees are playing, that's a fate worse than death. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I'll give you some NHL Valk talk that doesn't involve the Stanley Cup playoffs. The first story is the Oilers re-signing Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to a massive 8-year deal worth $41 million. That equates to a $5,125,000 AAV. And you know what? Nugent-Hopkins is worth it. McDavid and Draisaitl get the headlines because they may be the 2 best players in the NHL today. McDavid is without question the best. Draisaitl, if he's not second best, he's in the conversation. So a guy like Nugent-Hopkins is going to get lost in the shuffle, but he's a really good player. Last year he had 35 points in 52 games. The year before that he had 61 points in 65 games. Look, last year he took a step back, okay? There's no question about that. But he's still a really, really good player. The Oilers have talent. They just need a coach that's going to get it out of them. I don't know how Dave Tippett survived. The guy gets swept by the Jets, loses to an inferior Blackhawks team in the bubble. You've got to keep this talent around. It's a great move by the Oilers to re-sign Nugent-Hopkins for this long. And a little over $5 million a year is more than fair for him. The thing is, though, these guys aren't getting any younger. They're in the primes of their career. I'm not saying they're old. They're not. Nugent-Hopkins is 28. Draisaitl's 25. And McDavid's 24. But don't you get this sense that the Oilers need to win sooner rather than later? They have the best player in the world, flanked by one of the best players in the world, and a solid supporting cast, yet somehow, some way, they haven't won a playoff series since 2017. They've got to figure this out quickly. This is a good move by the Oilers. There's no question about that. But I'd like to see them win sooner rather than later. Moving on now to the Sabres, hiring Don Granato as their full-time head coach. He was their interim head coach after they fired Ralph Kruger. As the Sabres interim head coach, he went 9-16-3. To put that in perspective, Kruger last year went 6-18-4. So Granato was better, but not by an absurd amount. I mean, it's hard to get excited about this hire. It's hard to kill it, though. The Sabres head coaching job is probably the least appealing head coaching job in the NHL. They go through head coaches like crazy. After Lindy Ruff left, they went with Ron Rolston. Only coached 51 games before he was fired. They went back to Ted Nolan. He only lasted 2 years. Then they went with Dan Bylsma. He only lasted 2 years. Same thing with Phil Housley. Kruger lasted less than 2 years. It's not an appealing job. I'm sure that Kevin Adams asked better candidates for the job how they felt about the Sabres job, but I'm sure they said they didn't want it. If I'm a sexy head coaching candidate like Rick Tocchet, I'd rather take a year off, spend some time with family, than be fired in 2 years after failing in Buffalo. And you know that Granato's going to fail in Buffalo. This team is dreadful. Look, they have some solid pieces. Jack Eichel's great, although he's always in trade rumors. Sam Reinhart's really good. Victor Olofsson is really good. Rasmus Dahlin is very talented. Same thing with Casey Middlestat. Same thing with Rasmus Ristolainen. Tage Thompson, too. They've got a solid goalie in Linus Ullmark. But those guys aren't going to be key contributors for the next Sabres playoff team. The Sabres have tried building around these guys. It hasn't worked. The best thing that Kevin Adams can do is blow this team up. No one's untouchable. Not Eichel, not Reinhart, not Dahlin. This core that you have isn't going to get the job done. You signed Taylor Hall to a 1-year deal in the offseason. Everyone loved it at the time. Hall only had 19 points in 37 games. He only scored 2 goals. He was a minus 21. You give him away to the Bruins, and he turns into an almost point-a-game player. 8 goals and 14 points in 16 games. He was a plus 15. He had 5 points in 11 playoff games for the Bruins. It's no accident that Hall turned it around when he went away from Buffalo. He could have gone anywhere. The Bruins, the Islanders, back to the Devils, back to the Oilers, wouldn't have mattered. Hall would have been better because the Sabres are that putrid. Again, they have some talented players, but you're not going to win with them. You're just not. The best thing to do is to blow this team up. Go with a huge youth movement. Get as many high picks as you can. As many top prospects as you can. Trade everyone. I'm telling you. I feel bad for Granato. I really do. Forced to take a job that no one wants. Has a really bad roster. With some talented players, don't get me wrong. They're just never going to win in Buffalo. It's not enough to have a few talented players. You've got to have 4 lines cooking. You've got to have 3 defensive pairs cooking. The Sabres don't have that. The only way that they're going to get it is by going with a huge youth movement. Granato has a big challenge ahead of him. There's no question about that. I don't think Scotty Bowman could make these Sabres competitive. Moving on now to an interesting trade rumor. According to Frank Saravalli of Daily Faceoff, the Blues are exploring the trade market for Vladimir Tarasenko. Look, I understand that the last couple of years Tarasenko has been hurt. He's only played in 34 games in the past 2 years combined. But when healthy, he's one of the best players in the NHL. He's basically a point-a-game player, was a big reason why the Blues won the Stanley Cup in 2019. If Tarasenko is healthy now, why would you trade him? Look, I understand that the Blues have had disappointing playoff performances after winning the Stanley Cup. In the bubble, they lost to the Canucks, and they were one of the teams that didn't need to fight for the right to be in the playoffs, so to lose to the Canucks, a team that did have to fight for that right, was really surprising. And this year, obviously, they were swept by the Avalanche. I get that. And look, Tarasenko's making a lot of money, $7.5 million for the next 2 years. But the Blues aren't in a terrible cap position. They've got to re-sign some guys, there's no question, but they have $17 million in cap room. I mean, look, you'd like for them to re-sign Tyler Bozak. Jordan Kyrie's going to get his big boy contract. Robert Thomas is probably going to get his big boy contract. Vince Dunn is going to get his big boy contract. But that's it. They're fine. They can squeeze those 4 guys in with $17 million in cap room. Do they need to improve their roster? The answer is yes. You don't make it out of the first round in the 2 years after you won the Stanley Cup. You've got to make some changes. But I don't think one of those changes should be trading one of the best players in the NHL in Vladimir Tarasenko. I get that he has injury issues. I get that he's on a big contract. But Tarasenko can be a part of the solution for you if you're the Blues. Unless they get the moon and the stars, I'll have a tough time endorsing a Tarasenko trade. I'll close this show out with some MLB Valk talk. A very interesting trade. The Marlins traded Adam Simber and Corey Dickerson to the Blue Jays for Joe Panik and Andrew McInvale. Hey, with the Yankees playing like garbage, the Blue Jays have an opportunity to make some noise in the AL East. I mean, you take a look at their roster, their bullpen, besides Jordan Romano, Trent Thornton, and Joel Payamps, is absolutely dreadful. Simber's going to go a long way towards shoring that up. He's a very talented reliever. He's 1-2 with a 2.88 ERA. Good setup guy. Has talent. No question about that. As for where Dickerson fits in, he's probably going to be more of a backup. You got to realize the Blue Jays already have Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Randall Grichuk, Teoscar Hernandez, and George Springer. I understand that Springer's been hurt this year. He's only played in 9 games. But he's back now. He's obviously going to play. So Dickerson's going to be a backup outfielder / backup DH. And let me tell you, having Corey Dickerson in that role is really, really good for the Blue Jays. Dickerson this year is hitting .260 with 2 homers and 14 RBIs. The 2 homers and 14 ribbies do nothing for me, but the .260 average is solid. And in 2019, Dickerson was a .300 hitter. He hit .304 for the Pirates and Phillies combined. He has talent. He's a former All-Star, former Gold Glover. He could start for a bunch of teams. He could definitely start for the Yankees. Andujar, Dickerson, and Judge? That sounds pretty darn good to me. Another bad job by Cashman. I understand that I've said in the past that I don't want the Yankees to give up big prospects this year. This isn't the year to do that. But the Blue Jays didn't do that. They gave up Joe Panik, a former top prospect who seems to have topped out as just a utility infielder, and Andrew McInvale, a schmagegi reliever who's never played above Double-A. He's 24 years old. So yeah, if you want to give up a couple schmagegis for Corey Dickerson, if you're Cashman, I'm okay with that. I'm a little surprised that the Marlins did this. They really didn't get much for 2 solid players. Simber and Dickerson are solid players. They pulled the trigger way too early. The trade deadline this year is July 30th, and that's not me misspeaking. It actually is July 30th this year, not June 30th. You had a month for the market to play itself out a little bit. You didn't need to pull the trigger and get a utility infielder and a 24-year-old who's never played above Double-A. Great trade for the Blue Jays. They obviously win it. Simber's going to give them a really good reliever in that bullpen. Lord knows they needed it. And Corey Dickerson's going to give them some quality depth. New York Islanders off-season preview comes your way tomorrow night. Regular episodes of The Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon, except next week I'll be on vacation. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying, root only for the winner. That way, you won't be disappointed.